I'm Matt Gilhooly, and this is The Life Shift, candid conversations about the pivotal moments that changed lives forever. Hello, my friends. I am here with Hondu, and we have known each other for, I don't know, 10 years, maybe?
Yeah, probably something like that.
Yeah.
As crazy as that is, wow.
Yeah. It's a long time. I feel like I was just a child back then. Now I'm
Yeah, me too.
ripe old age of 40 something. But we know each other through your brother. Your brother and I
Yes.
have worked together, I believe, over ten years now. And your brother was actually on the Life Shift podcast talked a lot about you. So that's coming out
Oh, that's
soon.
cool.
By the time this one's out, it's already been out. So you'll have heard it and maybe beat him up for what he said about you.
Hopefully, it's all good stuff. Nah.
No, it's great. And your stories from the preview that I got, your stories very different than what your brother talked about. And I'm excited that you're one just willing to share it, because I think just knowing the little bit that I know, I think it's going to help a lot of people. And
Oh,
that's kind
cool.
of what I found in these episodes of the Life Shift, is that despite how different the scenarios may be, there's such a common like through line of the human experience that we all
Yep.
kind of can connect with certain pieces. And so that's what I'm finding so far. And I think that your story is quite impactful. And I'm super happy to see where you are these days compared
Well, thank
to
you.
kind of that, what you're about to set up for us, of kind of
Yeah.
what your before the bigger shifts in your life happened, and the shifts that you made happen after something you didn't want to happen.
Hmm.
Tell us a little bit about what your life was like, kind of leading up to this point. What were you
So,
doing?
leading up, golly, I was in my mid 20s. Um, and I had moved down here from a small town in Alabama, which I'm sure you gathered from my brother. So, I wanted to stay somewhere that was close to home. I guess I should rewind all the way back, but I've come to find out that I have a pretty intense anxiety disorder.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just something I just dealt with my whole life, but I didn't understand what it was. And one thing is I am like terrified of flying. So, and I know that's a common thing with people, but like, yeah, this is a completely random thing. But one time I freaked out at an airport and I ended up taking a train back from LA to Chicago because I wouldn't fly,
Oh wow.
just from LA to Orlando. So yeah, that was fun. But
Anxiety is real. It
I
can
know,
stop
man.
you
It
in your
does the
tracks.
craziest things. Yep. Um, so yeah, I moved down to Orlando, and yeah, I wanted to stay somewhere that I could like still drive back home.
Mm-hmm.
But you know where we were from, it was like you could go to Nashville or you could go to Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
and I just really didn't want to go to either one of those places. So Orlando was kind of like the next big city, and then we've always loved like the beach. I'm fascinated with the Golden Girls, so that was a big selling point.
You're a little bit farther
um,
north, but
yeah, I am, but that's all right. When you come from Alabama and you see palm trees, you're just like, oh, the beach.
that's true. Was your brother
um,
already down here?
no, so I was the first one that moved.
Okay.
Um, and then Alex and my sister in law came down a few years later. Um, I believe that my mom ended up moving down. So my parents are divorced. My mom moved down. She worked for like government up there, and then they were able to transfer her down here.
Mm-hmm.
So she lives down here, and then one of my best friends and Chris, he ended up moving down here, and then my buddy Jeff moved down here. So like we took a lot of like our very close friends and we kind of just relocated.
Relocated.
Yeah. So um, so when I moved down here, I had freshly quit a band that we had toured with. So me and Chris and my brother and Jeff and one of our other friends named Peter, we were all in the band. And we toured for a few years and had a good little run, I guess. And then just kind of went sour. a lot of, especially looking back on it now, I'm definitely embarrassed about how I handled the situation and things like that. But you live, you grow. Yeah. It's all part of it. So, yeah, ended up just being like, hey, I don't want to be in Alabama anymore. There's nothing for me here. I'm a creative person. I've always been a very creative person. I just, I did very poorly in school because my just concentration isn't there. Yeah. Just things like that.
What were you doing when you came to Orlando for work?
So I ended up meeting a guy that he was in a band that ended up actually getting pretty big. Mm-hmm. So he ended up getting me a job for like the business end of music. So we would do a lot of merchandise and that kind of stuff. So I worked there for a while. So it was nice, just coming down and just having a job immediately.
Right.
It was kind of like, okay, this is cool. This is a good step, step in the right direction.
Right. And it helps with anxiety to have at least that comfort of knowing that you have a paycheck coming in and those kind of things.
That, yeah. And, like, especially because I came down here by myself, so I didn't know anybody. So I'm just like hanging out at my house, basically just talking to my brother. I mean, him and I are up all night, every night anyways. So, right. He and I were just text all night long. I'd probably go to bed at like 6 a.m., wake up at 11 and just go back to work and just try and, stay around people and stay busy just because you're just like, what is happening? I don't know anybody. Everything is like, honestly, it's kind of scary. Yeah. It's very scary looking back on it. It's a very big jump.
Especially for someone who was aware that you were so like anxious or you had like some kind of anxiety disorder to actually just even move, right? From something comfortable.
Yeah. I think that was also kind of part of it, was I didn't really realize what my anxiety was.
Okay.
At the time. It was just kind of like, it felt right. And it felt like I was listening to my body, which, until recently was something I never did. So I got out, which was the big thing. But then, I came down here. I ended up going to school. Like, I mentioned earlier, I didn't do well in high school. I know I don't do well in school. I'm just not that person. Mm-hmm. But then, of course, everyone's parents are always all over them about going to school and that kind of stuff. So, I was trying to please my parents, mostly my dad. And it all just kind of backfired. I went to a community college for a little bit. And then you caught that. We'll probably have to cut that out.
No, you're fine.
But yeah, I went to community college for probably, golly, it must have been 3 semesters or something like that.
What did you go for?
And then I transferred. Honestly, I don't even remember. What was it? I think what I was trying to do was get some credits that I needed, and then I was going to transfer those to the next school.
Okay.
So it's just like your basic courses. Yeah. But of course, especially like my worst subject is math. I'm awful at math. So of course I take like a math class and fail it, and then I get bummed on myself, and then parents are like, why did you fail this? And just this whole...
It becomes a cycle.
Yeah, exactly. And it becomes a very... I don't even know what the word is. It's just an intense cycle, if you get stuck into it.
Right.
So yeah, I ended up transferring, got all my tests done and stuff like that. Ended up transferring schools. And then at the time I had started dating a girl that I met when I moved down here. And then her family was friends with a family in the military. So they were having to move to Germany, and they had a dog. And so back home in Alabama, I'm like, the crazy cat woman. I'm like the weirdo weenie dog guy, and I love weenie dogs.
Yeah.
So I've always had a weenie dog. So we had one back home. His name was Scooter, but he stayed with my mom. And so when I moved down here, I didn't have anything except I had my ex. Mm-hmm. But she was like, do you want a dog? And I was like, well, yeah, duh.
As long as it's a weenie dog.
Well, any kind of dog, But yeah, it just so happened to be a weenie dog. And the first day I met him, he actually like he came running over, and we were all her family's house, and he came running over. He jumped onto the table, and he just started eating off people's plates, and I was just like, "Whoa, like what is it?" You know? And so
What
like,
is it?
like what? I was like looking around, like, is he supposed to be doing that? You know? Um, but yeah, I ended up adopting him, and his name was Buster. He was like, golly, how old was he when I got him? 4, I think. He was a full size dachshund, so he was like a little chubby little dude, but he was like the I don't know, just that perfect dog.
Yeah.
That like you don't have to put a leash on. He everyone's favorite. You know, he's the dog that just lights up. I mean, all dogs do,
Right.
but you know, there's just some of those special ones that are just like, oh man, that dog is just like
Yeah.
perfect. Wouldn't hurt anything, but he'd protect you.
Yeah.
Um,
And he was what
yeah,
you
just the
needed at that
sweetest
time.
little dude. Yeah, you know, and it's like, yeah, I guess rewinding some, like so when I was 10, my grandfather passed away 4 days after my birthday, and he and I were really close. But then 2 weeks after that, my parents divorced, so it was a lot of loss,
Yeah.
all at once that I don't know, I never really like came to terms with,
Right.
you know. And I recently was going through. This is so sad and depressing, golly.
It's fine.
But I was just going through some. Yeah, I know, right? I was going through some boxes in the garage, and I found some stuff that was like it must have. I probably was 11 or 12 or something like that. And you know how they made you write on things at school or whatever, like what you want to do when you grow
Right.
up, or like your ambitions and your goals. And man, mine were just like it was like I wish my parents were divorced, and then it was like I wish my grandfather wasn't dead. And it was just like things like that you're like, dude, a kid is saying this, you know. So that to me, I was like, why didn't anyone see the signs?
Yeah.
You know, like that's just screaming that like this kid needs help.
I think
But
it was the product of the time too, of the
oh
the time
yeah,
when
for
you were
sure.
10. I went through the same thing as a kid when my mom died when I was 8. It was, like it took me. I mean, it took me a lot long. It took me like 20 plus years to fully grieve, but to
Mhm.
recognize the fact that I needed like that help took like 8 years or so. So I totally get
Yeah.
it. And it's, I think, I don't think people are necessarily not aware. They just don't know how to address it, right? They like as a
Yeah.
kid, you just want to make everything better, or you're just going to want to mask it by, buying you things or whatever it may be
Hmm.
to kind of, he's fine, he'll be fine, he'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would imagine that, or I would hope that in 2022, children that are going through similar things have more options for support, or it's just,
Yeah.
you know,
And I think it's a lot easier to talk about these days.
yeah.
You know, just like I don't know. Obviously, you follow or you have followed my story,
Mm-hmm.
and like you know, to me, people are like, "How do you? You're so vulnerable, and you know, you just open up, and how do you do that?" But to me, it's like a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Like I gotta get that shit
Yeah.
out of my brain, man, or it's just gonna eat me alive.
Yeah.
Like I can't, you know, when I know, like you know, as far as my story goes, when I crash, it's like it's not a pretty sight.
Yeah.
So you know, like staying away from that the best I can is
Well, do you think
trying.
like your parents divorcing and your grandfather passing kind of manifested itself into
Oh,
kind
for
of,
sure.
I mean, because there was a period of time where it was really rough for you. I don't know if you want to share that, but it's kind of a big part of your life.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't know if it's.
Do you think it stemmed from that?
I don't know if it's. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Everything
Bottled up, kind of.
that. Yeah, exactly. And you know, like you said, it took you 20 plus years, and you know, it doesn't go away.
Right.
You know, like you could say you've grieved, but it's always going to be there.
Yeah.
But when you don't think about it and you just kind of put it in a container in your brain and put it away, it just builds and it builds. And it's like, I don't know, it's like boiling water, you know, eventually it's going to pop.
Right.
And then when it pops, it's like, what happens? You
Yeah.
know? So back to the story with Bus. I ended up getting him, and yeah, I had him for about 3 to 4 years. And then one day he just wasn't eating, and I was just like, "That's weird," you know.
Yeah.
So took him up to the animal hospital, and they said that he ended up having a couple tumors on his spleen. So they were like, you have to bring him back next Monday, blah, blah, blah. You know, we can't do anything right now. Like, just make sure you rest, and we'll see what happens Monday. So Monday came around, and when they opened him up, they said that it was just like, they were like, you know, we could patch him up,
Right.
but that's about it. You know, there's no coming back from this. So, and they were like, he's in a lot of pain right now, so we would probably just go ahead and let him go.
Yeah.
So I ended up putting him down that day, which was awful.
Right.
That was just like the worst day of my life.
Because you had him for 4 or 5 years, you said, at this point, like best buddy.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, just like your little shadow,
right?
You know,
and everything's so
you realize
after.
Yeah, and you give them kind of like what you needed when you were growing up that was absent,
right?
So you kind of just pour everything into them, you know. And he was just that dog for me. So before he had passed, I had actually met someone else that we had started dating. And as weird as it was, she had lived pretty close to me, but she was actually from my hometown and in Alabama. Yeah. So we knew a lot of the same people. And again, you know, it's like that, just kind of like a safety net, I guess. Kind of felt like a safety net
or comfort.
Of like, okay, sort. Someone I'm familiar with where I'm from, that kind of stuff. But I mean, from the beginning, it was just toxic. You know, it was just this constant like just butting of our heads, and just like, you know, I don't argue a lot, and I don't like to raise my voice. I probably have raised my voice like maybe once or twice in my life. But her and I are just like, she was that person that knew how to really poke at you. And you know, at the time I was in such an awful headspace that, you know, so I took to drinking. And she took to drinking,
which doesn't help any situation that's bad.
No, well, I mean, in the moment it does for a second, just because it knocks off the feelings. But no, it makes everything so much worse. Right. The come down is awful. Everything is just awful. So then what you do is, like, especially for me, you know, being an alcoholic, it's like you try to not get the come down.
Right.
So you just keep drinking and drinking and drinking. So yeah, Buster ended up passing on my sister-in-law's 30th birthday, actually. So that was pretty awful. We actually found out he was sick on my brother's birthday, passed away a week later on my sister-in-law's birthday. And at that time, I had already started drinking. I wasn't as heavy as I got to.
Yeah.
But
like heavy drinking or
yeah. So drinking is really the only thing that I've ever, you know, experimented with, except, you know, having a medical card.
Right.
I've never really had the urge to do anything, you know, any of those crazy things. So, you know, I guess in a weird way, as scary as alcoholism is, and, you know, being an addict and living it every day, it sucks, you know, but I don't know. I've heard heroin is a little worse, so I'm just glad I wasn't shooting needles into my arm. But
small wins.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, you know, I didn't care about anything. I was going to school, hated that. I just failed out of school. Literally drank away a $20,000 loan, like an asshole. Still paying that one back, I think. What else?
So
I guess,
did losing Buster make the drinking worse? Was it more numbing?
Yeah,
like you were looking
so
for that?
it was more of a numbing thing, especially immediately when he died. So I had moved to a townhouse that my dad had bought, and it was like, hey, you know, if you can go through school, I can house you until you're done, and then we'll figure it out. part out. So, I was very grateful for that.
Right.
But the school part, like it's not me. I just can't. And you can't force yourself to do something that your body is going to reject. Like that's one thing that I've learned. If your mind is saying no, and maybe you don't understand it at the time, but your body's going to start doing things that it's like, hey, this is it saying no to that one specific thing. So, but a lot of people, they don't understand that, and they're not going to understand that. So,
well, we're not taught.
I luckily know that. Right. And luckily, I was able to kind of figure that out for myself. And, I don't know. So, where the townhouse was, it was like here. And then if you drove, like you wouldn't have to get on a main road. It was basically the neighborhood road. And then it led out of a gate. And then your first left was Publix. So, if there's Publix, that means there's a Publix. Right. So it just so happened that was 2 minutes away. So I guess, after Buster died, man, I was up there at, they opened at 10 a.m. So I was up there at 9:45 waiting for them to open. My drinking, at the height of my drinking, I was, and I'm not proud to say this, but I do hope it helps somebody that, if you're really that far gone, you can still turn it around. And side note, drinking, I was 243 pounds at my heaviest because that was all alcohol related. And now I'm like 166 pounds, and it all just fell off when I stopped drinking. Like I just wasn't swollen and red and, that kind of stuff. But I was up there every day, 10 a.m. And then for about a year and a half to 2 years or so, I was drinking about 2.5 bottles of whiskey a day by myself. I came out to like 22 shots. I would count them. So it was not.
Did you?
Not very fun.
Did you feel during the time? Did you? I don't know that I've considered myself an addict of any sort. Did you know that you were not doing the right thing for yourself? I don't think that's the right way to word it, but you know what I mean? Like, did you know, were you in it and be like, I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm going to do it anyway? Or were you further than that? Like you just needed it?
With the drinking? It's interesting. It's very interesting because I think, not trying to make you feel bad, because I'm glad you don't have to live through being an addict. But it really is one of those things that, like, I think you have to go through it to figure out, like, what it does. Because it's like, I mean, I knew I was doing terrible things for myself, but I don't know. I didn't know if, like, I comprehended. Like, honestly, man, I was stealing money from my parents. I was like, I would call them and lie and be like, hey, I can't eat, like, can you, I don't know, throw some money into my account or something, and then I would just turn that around and just go spend it on alcohol. And just, you just find ways to manipulate you, and it takes you, and it does these things, because I would never do that to anybody. Like that's a crazy thing. So as soon as I started catching on to that, I was like, okay, I should probably stop drinking. But by that time, it was like, it was too hard. It was too far. I was too far gone. Like, you can't, and alcohol is one of those things, like, you can't just stop. Like, it's, you have to wean yourself off, or you have to go get professional help. Like, you can't, if anyone is out there that's listening that needs to stop drinking, just do not stop.
Because you can get real sick and stuff.
Because that, that is one of the worst things you can do for you. And it sucks, but that's, that you kind of start to, like, I ended up going to rehab.
What was the,
so after
what was the moment that made you go, it's time?
My mom actually came over to my old apartment, and she was just like screaming, just trying to figure out what was going on. I was in and out of the hospital constantly because of dehydration and things like that. I literally got to a point that my legs were so weak that I couldn't walk. So I was crawling. I was like literally crawling around my apartment, doing more
Right.
shots
Yeah.
like an idiot. Like it's psycho. So that's the kind of stuff where I'm like, it just
Right.
takes you and it makes you do the craziest thing. Cause like, I don't know. That's crazy. Just crawling around to go get more alcohol because your legs don't work because of the alcohol is just like, what psychopath does that?
You're not the only
So,
one that's faced this. So it's
I know.
like you said,
Yeah.
it's the alcohol. It's not you. And
Yep.
and I'm guessing there was a lot of that pent up grief that you didn't.
Yep.
You didn't follow through with that.
That's exactly that. Is
the expectations that your parents maybe put on you to go to school, or you thought your parents put on you to go to school, society. I get it.
Yep. That all of that. Yeah. Growing up with a Pakistani dad in Alabama is pretty strange too. That's definitely screwed with me a little bit. I'm proud of it. That guy's done more than most people that I know will ever do in their lives. And that was just to come over here to make a life for himself. But yeah, there's things that he and I we don't see eye to eye together on. But back in the day, I was a lot more stubborn of like, I only see my side of the story. I don't see his side, because what does his side matter? It's, I was very selfish. And I think drinking was a big experience with just life. It was humbling. You learn self-discipline, like just a lot of things that I needed that I wasn't taught. I've taught myself because of, stopping drinking and having that moment of like, when my mom came over to my old apartment, it was just like, okay, I don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to do something. And so I was like, all right, let's just find a rehab clinic. And then I just spilled it. I was just like, I just can't stop drinking. Like literally cannot stop drinking. And I don't know what's going on.
Well, good on you for determining
I guess,
though. I mean, a lot of people don't get there. And
Yeah, that's true. Like I've got a lot of buddies that struggle with it. I've had a lot of friends that have passed away from addiction issues and suicide and, just a lot of crazy things.
It takes over.
Yeah, it does, and it's like, if you can get a hold of it, not even the addiction part, but if you can just kind of understand who you are as a person and what you want in life and not worry about the outside opinions and just, like society's going to judge you no matter what. So, I heard something one time, and it was actually in rehab, and they said like, it was something along the lines of, yourself better than anyone on this planet. So just listen to yourself and listen to your body. If if it's weird and you like, everyone goes this way, but for some reason your body's pulling you that way, go that way. Be the person that stands out, so yeah, like ended up going to rehab. And I failed a lot. I didn't stay clean. Oh man, I probably relapsed at least 8 or 9 times.
Which is probably common, right?
Yeah. There is a therapist at the clinic that I went to, and so basically what we would do is we would do group therapy. I did it's called intensive outpatient rehab, or IOP. So I would go from 10 to 12 every morning, and then they would drug test you. So, if you had anything in your system, you would, they would talk to you, whatever. But they had this one therapist, and he was like just the hard ass, like toxic masculinity guy, which is something I do not deal with. I cannot take toxic masculinity. Right. I was basically, I grew up with my mom for a big portion of my life, so I deal with, I don't know. I feel like I just get along better with females, and I've always, clicked better with them and just things like that. So, right away I was already kind of like jaded towards this dude. But he was like the drill sergeant asshole that would get like right in your face and be like, "You drink, you're not allowed." And so I was like, "Oh God, this guy's such a clown." Um, but I ended up almost leaving because of that guy. Because I drank one day and he came in the next day and he was just like freaking out, and I was like, "Dude, this is not how you."
Yeah.
I knew, like, as a person, like, that's not how you treat someone that's trying to stop drinking, or whatever substance you're using. Um, so ended up, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go just through this week and see what happens. And that Friday, a girl named Sam, she led our group therapy, and that was over 6.5 years ago, I guess. And she's been my therapist ever since then. So I'm glad I stayed that week because she's changed my life. Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's important too for just anyone listening, is that like therapy, there are all sorts of therapists, and that drill sergeant type, it could very well work for someone. Someone very well
for sure
needs like that. Whereas, I mean, when I was going, I think I went through 5 or 6 different therapists before I found the one that on paper, or like if I was to describe this woman to other people, they'd be like, that doesn't make any sense for you. Knowing you, like that woman's approach and what you're saying right now does not compute. Like, I don't get it, And so I think it's important to know that therapy, you have to find the right person. You have to find the right space, the one that you can connect with, the one that you can trust, because it's big when you're going through all that stuff. So it's great that you stayed long enough.
And like you, I went through probably 5 or 6 therapists before her, and I mean, sometimes I'm just like, golly, I wish I got my money back for that.
Do you think?
Because like one time I walked in and this lady was like, I sat down and she was literally just like, "Why don't you just stop drinking?" And I was like, "What?" I was like, I don't know what to say to that, but that's why I'm here. If you could help, but
she wasn't.
Just so obviously, exactly. But again, what happened is I ended up finding a female that's closer to my age that understands me, and so I know who works well with me as a person. And so if you can understand that and you can take that out into the real world, it just makes life so much easier. You can just kind of pass over all the people that you don't have to deal with and just go look for what you need.
It does. I feel like I had to go through the bad ones to know the one that clicked, though, for in my instance.
Yeah. Same here. I just knew, like, yelling at me is never going to get me to do anything. That's just going to make me stop right away. So that guy, I was just like, well,
like, I think people, people that are not, seeking out therapy, like, think about a gym trainer, right? There are all sorts of gym trainers that some are very supportive and kind of pushing you along in that way. Some of them, as you see on TV, are just like yelling in your face and calling you names. And so it runs the spectrum.
Yeah, I feel like that's anything in life. I had two teachers in high school that I probably would still be in high school if I didn't have those 2 teachers that, they just helped me through. And I made sure to stay in touch with them because, it's just that natural, like, I don't know, there's just a natural chemistry that's like, hey, I know you understand me and you're truly trying to help. And like, but my other teachers, like, I failed one class in high school 3 times with the exact same grade with the exact same teacher. And it's like, how is that possible? So like those kind of things, I don't know. But again, like you look at those teachers and they're 2 females that really helped me through what I was going through and knew it. And like, they know how to talk to you and they, and it's like, it's those little things in life that really make it, like, I don't know, finding those bonds so special is like, okay, they understand how to talk to me, not talk down to me, and like, get the best out of you. I think that's what a great teacher is supposed to do. I agree. They're supposed to get the best out of you.
Do you think that meeting that particular therapist was really the big shift, if you break it down, like the reason why you are who you are today? Do you think she contributed to that?
Yeah, she definitely contributed to it. I think my biggest thing was when I could
Yeah.
finally get sober and I could take a set, you know, like I used to, they sell these like, this might be a tip too for anybody, but if you're trying to get sober, they sell these little like chalkboards, like, and they stick to your wall. So it's like a little sticky, but if you pull it off, it won't
Right.
peel the paint off. Um, so I would literally just order those and I would start putting tally marks on the wall for how many days I would stay sober. Um, you know, and I would go, I don't know, 60 days. And then I would be like, let's drink. Yeah. And then, you know, like that's the crazy thing is the addiction is like, let's go party now. And so then you're like, okay, I'm ready to go party. So then you would drink again and do it all over again. And then you realize like, damn, I just gave up 60 days, you know, and then I do it again 14 days and then I would drink or, you know, so it was just this constant like fall down, get back up, fall down, get back up. But the important thing is to get back up. Like you can't just stay down in drinking because all you're going to do is kill yourself. And so, you know, I had a doctor tell me that I wouldn't make it past 5 years if I kept going at the rate I was going. And so like, maybe that was kind of the moment that, you know, now that I'm talking it out, that was like a very big, like, oh yeah, you know, like maybe this guy just slapped some like sense into me, you know, like, cause you know, when I was
the doctor,
like, I guess drinking.
Yeah.
When I was there, you know, I was just really over, they told me my blood pressure was like, they like looked at me like, are you okay? And then they were like, your blood pressure is like near where like a heart attack would occur. And I was just like, oh, cool, that's good. So what did I do? I went home and I drank like an insane person. But again, you just keep falling down and but you got to get up and you got to just keep going with, you know, just trying to do the best thing for you. Because you realize like, you know, maybe your 20s and stuff like that are kind of like the party days, but a lot of people can't get out of that, you know? And like hearing someone tell you like straight up face to face that like, oh, you're just going to be a statistic for alcohol companies, you know? Like,
yeah, you didn't want to be that. Yeah.
I didn't want that. No, you know, and like, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I think it's what, like 5% of people only can actually stay sober. You know, and I'm going on 6.5 years now. So like, it's tough. It's a daily fight. You know, I'd be lying to you if I didn't sit here and say I didn't think of alcohol all the time. And my poor fiance has to hear me talk about it just constantly. But we get
I think you mentioned this. I mean, you did mention this earlier in how you keep that transparency and you share the struggles that you're going through. One, because you think it's important for your own journey, but also I think there's a part where you can help other people, even the people questioning, why are you doing this? How, like, what's happening? How did you get to that point in which you were, because I mean, it sounds like for many years you were just masking any kind of pain or, you know, sadness or depression or anxiety or any of those things. You were just masking those. How did you get to the point in which you're like, open book, here you go, guys?
So a big thing is my family doesn't like to talk about a lot of things. You know, like we don't hug, we don't say I love you, we don't really do those things, and we never have. And so I think like I'm a person that I need that. You know, I think that's why Jackie and I work so well. It's because we're both like that. And so like finding those opposites of my family and I, like, you know, it's just kind of some things I just go completely opposite with. And that just happens to be one of those things that instead of keeping it bottled up inside, like I've got to get it out. And then when I realize like how much better it makes me feel when I get it out or when I, you know, say something, or even if I just post something on Instagram and like in a story or something, and it just like, you know, that split second that it just makes you feel good when you read it. And it's like, yeah, man, like you are doing all right. You know, like, yeah, just I don't know. It's
Well, I think it goes back to what you
I don't
said
know.
a couple minutes ago is about the bonds and finding the bonds that you need in those moments. And so maybe finding your fiance, and you know, that's like
Yeah, that was definitely a
you feel
because I
safe.
was actually yeah yeah oh yeah she is definitely like the safety, and I tell her that all the time. She
Yeah.
is like my safety blanket. I don't know if you
Yeah.
ever used a weighted blanket, but she's like that feeling all the time. And that's a rare thing, but I also think that if I hadn't gone through what I went through, um, I wouldn't appreciate what I have with her, and it's like as crappy as a thing that it was, I don't wish that upon anybody. Like where I was mentally and emotionally, and just having to figure out myself and
Yeah.
how to handle myself and that kind of stuff, like to be able to find someone that's out there in the world that lets you be yourself with all your issues and just understanding you as a human being, it's very special, and so coming from a very toxic relationship of like, my ex would come home and just slam like one of those huge like bottles of rum, like the party pack ones, and she would just
Right.
come home and just slam it down. I'm trying to be
Right.
sober, I've got 20 days sober, but then
No support.
like it's like someone, I don't know, what's your favorite like food?
All the things I can't eat right now, all the gluten that I can't have. Yeah.
Okay, so imagine someone just walking into
Here's
your
a
house
cake.
and just putting it right in front of you and just being like, "Hey, how are you?" It's like, "What? What are you doing?"
Yeah.
So and like so getting out of that, she honestly she just left. She just like packed up and left 2 days before our rent
Yeah.
was my ex did was over. But yeah, like at that point, I was just like, I hadn't under I didn't understand myself completely yet, but I knew that like, okay, I don't want a relationship like that because this is what happened, or this is part of what's gonna, what happens. And so, yeah, with Jackie, I kind of went off on like a little side tangent, but yeah, finding someone like her, I just hope everyone in life has the ability to find, their partner in life that can understand who you are and they don't judge you for anything. They've gone through their own things and they just understand you.
Yeah, and you probably wouldn't have realized
super
that
important.
had you not gone through what you went through, as tough as it was, like you wouldn't.
Right. Yeah. And I think that makes every day very special with her and I. It's like, as tough as it is, especially with the pandemic and my anxiety, like it's been, yeah, it's been pretty rough the last few years. Like I tell her all the time, I would hate to live with me. Like I'm a crazy person. Like I'm still at the point where I'm wiping down groceries like a psycho. But I don't know, like again, that's a lot of my issues stemmed from keeping all those things compartmentalized in my brain, and now it's like this is how it explodes. So, but it's also, it's a humbling thing because the pandemic started right as I was starting to get a little comfortable with like, okay, maybe I do have like this addiction thing under control. And then boom, the pandemic hits and I lose it again. And it's like, there it is, so now I'm learning more things about myself and, like how I've always been a crazy germaphobe and like I have all these phobias and just weird things that like, a lot of stuff points back to addiction or points back to ADD or, I was diagnosed with CPTSD probably 8 years ago. So a lot of it just, I don't know, you start seeing those when you can really take a step out of yourself and you find yourself, you start seeing where those things point to, and then you can kind of go be like, all right, I want to go tackle that issue. And then it's like, what are the steps I need to do to take care of that? So, but yeah, you start realizing, man, what all you're addicted to, golly.
All sorts of things.
Sugar.
Right. Everything.
Sugar addicts.
People are addicted to.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Computer, phones.
Yeah,
but who admits
they're not
it?
self-aware enough. I think that's the issue. Yeah, and
exactly.
She's gonna love it. But my episode 1 guest, she really opened my eyes to, and I don't think she coined it, but we talked about radical acceptance, and it feels like at this point in your life,
Mm-hmm.
you're accepting of the things that maybe you were masking before, that it's okay to
Yeah.
have to not like germs, like it's okay to have anxiety. It's
Yeah.
okay to be a
Yep.
recovering alcoholic. Like it's okay. This is who
Yeah.
you
Exactly.
are, and this is how you're
Yeah.
moving forward.
Exactly. Exactly. And if you can understand that and come to terms with it and just be like, all right, this is who I am, instead of trying to fight it. I think that's a big thing that I've recently kind of understood is, I guess, well, real quick, I guess a quick shout out to another person that I adore, just her mental, I don't know, awareness and just she's a very, very intelligent person. Abby Wills is someone that I just, she, her, I don't even know how to explain it. I'm just stumbling all over myself. So I was in another bad headspace. Um, and because of this germ thing, uh, this is actually a great anxiety story now I'm thinking about it. So Jackie and I, we lived in Baldwin Park, above one of the restaurants over there. And so you had to go through this hallway to get to our apartment. And so right as the pandemic hit, I just freaked out. And so I'm just like, oh God, everyone's got it.
Right.
I'm going to die. Like if I also deal with health anxiety because my grandfather's death. So, anything and everything, I'm like, oh, I've probably got it and I'm going to die.
At least you're aware of that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's awful because it's literally every single thing. So then we moved into my mom's old house, which actually we just bought last Friday. So that's kind of cool. Thank you. But yeah, we ended up moving into this house. And the reason is because my anxiety got so bad over there at the apartment that I couldn't even go outside to walk. We have another weenie dog, go figure. And his name's Otis. So I wouldn't even go outside to walk Otis because I was so just paranoid and that kind of stuff. So yeah, we ended up moving here, and then I'm helping my mom move out, and I gave myself a hernia, moving one of her dresser things outside, and I didn't know what it was at the time. So then I put a heating pad on me, and I guess I thought it turned off or something, and I guess it just never did. So I burned myself, my leg, my inner leg, my back, insane, crazy, to where I had to I had to call the doctor, get the burn cream that they put on first and second degree burn patients. Yeah. So I was pretty much dead for I don't know, a while. I guess January of last year. So back to my Abby Wills thing. I was sitting in a parking lot, and I just found out I had to have surgery for this hernia, and so I was freaking out because now I've got to go to the hospital. And so now I'm just like, Jesus, this never ends. And then of course at this time you see how most, or I wouldn't say most, but you see how Florida is handling the pandemic, and I already don't trust people, so that just kind of paints a picture for itself. So I was freaking out, and as weird as it is, her story just popped up into my feed, and I hadn't seen anything from her in a while. And her story was something about how she was about to do a online yoga course, like a virtual yoga class on Saturdays and that kind of stuff. So I hopped in with her, and that was honestly the first time I've probably ever found silence in my brain. And it was a very interesting thing because I was like, oh, maybe this is what having a silent brain is like. And so, I kind of started following her a little closer and seeing what she was all about. And then ends up, she also I believe she works in the education system out in the LA area, which I work with kids too. I teach music to kids. And so, we found a commonality there. So yeah, just between finding, again, it's finding the people who work well with you, you know. And I reached out to her a couple of times afterwards and that kind of stuff, and was just kind of explained who I was. And you know, like, you know, I'm a very intuitive person. That's something I've always known about myself. Um, and so with her, I had the exact same feeling that I had with my therapist now, Sam. Like when I first met her, I was like, oh, okay, that's a weird feeling. And I remembered it when I first met Sam, that I was like, okay, there's something weird here, but it feels right. And so, yeah, I reached out to her. But she's helped a lot. So I think if you can find those people that, you know, are genuinely there to help, and you just kind of, again, if you can admit to yourself and become aware that, like, you know, we're human, we're not perfect, you know. So like, who am I to judge you for something you do when I do thing, you know, like, I'm the most fidgety person ever, but if I sat here and I judged you for having anxiety, like, you know, I'm just a hypocrite. And so like, yeah, I don't know. It really is about finding who works well with you, even if it's like a job, you know, like, you know, for me, I found out doing, like, I did property management for a long time, and I just hated it, you know, because it's not me. Like, I'm not someone that enjoys being on the phone at 7 a.m. like getting screamed at about an air.
Well, you're still awake
but,
from
you
the
know,
night
like,
before, texting your brother.
I don't know. Yeah, yeah, and if not drinking,
not anymore.
No. That was after I stopped. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It's the thing, and I guess I keep going back to it, but the thing I found the most is just when you understand yourself, you know who to put yourself around and where you will succeed the most, being around those people, you know. And so I think you hear that old cliche of like, just cut out the old fat, you know, and that's kind of what I did. You know, I've lost so many friends after I stopped drinking, or I guess friends, you know, they're kind of probably just acquaintances now, but as soon as I stopped drinking, they're all gone, you know. And you hear so many people say that, but like, they're also the people that would make fun of me for not drinking, but now they're also the people that hit me up and they're like, hey man, how did you stop drinking? So it's like, you know, like, I don't know. I'm just kind of the person that, you know, I want people to do better and I want to help everybody. But if you're not willing to put in that help to help yourself, then yeah, like, you know, it's not fair for us to sit there and try to coach you through it when you're not willing to do it yourself, you know?
Yeah, and
I think that's something I picked up at rehab. It's just seeing all those people.
I think
no, you go ahead.
It's just, I mean, from what you're talking about, you have to be ready. Like, you yourself have to be ready for a lot of these things. And, you know, a lot of people go to rehab and, like you said, you relapse, you get back up. And until you're absolutely ready to meet yourself, right, you're not going to be successful until you're fully committed and ready to go. Exactly. So that's what I get from you mostly, is that you found yourself through this process. You probably unfortunately
definitely found myself,
had to go through that to be the person you are right now. Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a lot of things that I've leaned more into after I, you know, stopped drinking. I love playing the drums. Like, that was something, you know, I've always loved it, but as soon as I was able to get back and be like, oh, I have a second chance at this, like, it's just been that much more special, you know? And like, I think it's those kind of things that's like, yeah, maybe it was just a slap in the face from reality, being like, hey, enjoy what you've got, because, you know, I'm very grateful for all the help I have, and, you know, the friends that I have, and just seeing what's going on in the world, and just, you know, even just having a house over our head, you know, just very grateful for those kind of things that, you know, back in the day, I probably wouldn't have been. I've just been like, oh, well, whatever, you know, it's just me. Like, you know, so a new perspective.
I don't know. It just gives you, like, finding yourself gives you perspective, and it gives you confidence. You know, I think the confidence can take you a long way. Like, you know, I still struggle with, I don't know, I guess, like, the way I see myself. I still see myself as like a 250-pound, just drunk alcoholic. So like, like just things like that, that like, it's going to take time, and I'm never going to enjoy the way I look. And it's just something that was built into me, but it's like, you can't fault yourself for those things, and you can't sit there and drink yourself away because of these things. But I think that's kind of what people do is, they'll have one really bad moment in life, and then it's just like, boom, all these other little things start to spiral. And then that's where you can't catch yourself. And I feel like that's where people fall into like okay, suicide's the answer. And
it's just a moment in time.
It's just
those little things, like this too shall
Yeah.
pass.
It is, but they just get so, it's just, they can get so overwhelming. But if you just take a deep breath and just realize, man, it's a moment. Just let that moment go and then see where you're at. I think that's the important thing, but also being able just to admit your faults, just be honest with yourself. I think that's the biggest thing is, honesty. Like, it won't get you a lot of friends, but it'll get you the right ones. It's like, I would much rather just be completely open and honest. And I think this is why Jackie and I work so well, is the first thing we said to each other, when we first started dating, was like, let's just be completely honest, and just everything is just open and honest. And I can tell her anything, I share these stories just to get them out of my head, and just, tell her where I was and where I came from.
You've come a long way, my friend. And it's really cool to see where you are now. And it's inspiring in the sense that you're aware. I feel like you're more awake. I think
I appreciate
you that. Now have the idea that, okay, I got this one life. Now what am I going to do with it? Right. And you're kind of, I think it's cool.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, you get back to what you love. Listen to your body. Why did I stop playing the drums when it's something I've been doing since I was 5 years old? I don't know. So like, it's just find those things you love and just go hit them.
So I like to end these episodes with a question that nobody really can answer, because I think it's funny when people can't answer it. No.
Okay.
I want to know, if you could, what would you say to yourself that day that you had to put Buster down, from this perspective that you have now?
I would just tell myself to hang in there and just face, like, don't tuck it away, face it. Like, the best form of growth comes when you face those challenges, because what comes on out from the other side is way better than what is right here. But you have to go through that to get to that side, because you're going to learn. And whether it's something you want to learn, or it's something that life just throws at you that you have to learn in the moment, it's just, I'm very pessimistic as it is. So like, if you can change your thoughts and you try to make it like as optimistic as possible, I think that's a big help too. It's just rewiring the way you think about it, and that's an addiction thing in itself, is like, don't react on reaction, like, because my reaction is, oh, I want to drink. But if I wanted to go do that, I would just go get a drink. But if I say, oh, I want to drink, and then I let myself sit with that, and then I think about it for a second, then I'm like, no, I don't. Let's just go drink a seltzer water or something like that. It's that kind of stuff. So just patience, just hang in there. It gets better. It's hard, but that's life. It's lean into it and just kind of enjoy your friends. Tell your friends you love them. Coming from a family that doesn't say it a lot, but just the things you care about, take care of them. Take care of yourself. That's really the biggest thing. And honestly, the reason I mentioned that thing about Buster earlier, with him jumping up on the table, is that the type of cancer he had, I believe it had to do with something in his diet. So he had been eating people food for 5 years with his old family. And I had asked his old parents, I was like, so what's his favorite food? And they were like, flaming hot Cheetos.
He
Like,
was living
Jesus,
it up.
dude.
Well,
But
I appreciate
yeah,
you
man, he was awesome.
sharing your vulnerability. I think it's important for a lot of people to hear as
Thank
you're
you so
moving
much.
things around on the table there. No.
Oh yeah.
No, but
My bad.
seriously, I
Anxiety.
appreciate you. I think hopefully there are people that are listening that needed to hear what you had to share. And
Yeah, I hope so. I hope it does help. And like you can link up my socials and that kind of stuff if you want.
yeah,
I've always had people reach out to me, and if I can help in any way, then I'm always happy to. It's just that one rule that you got to be willing to help yourself, because before this, I wasn't willing to help myself, and I almost drank myself to death because of it. So just help yourself, and things get better. Take care of yourself, because we only got one chance at this life, so we might as well make it great.
I agree, and I think that's probably the perfect way to end this. So
Yeah, for
thank
sure.
you for being a part of this.
Thank you, man.